He was looking at if Paul wanted to sell out or take on a partner.
But he ended up, and tell me if you know, basically Watts had 30%, Bockwinkle at this time had 10%, and Paul and Peter Burkholz still owned the majority, right? Or did Watts get exactly a third?
Paul had a third, Watts had a third. The nephew had 2/3 of a third, and then Nick had a third of that third.
I can't do that math in my head, but you get the picture.
Yeah.
So basically, Paul was still in control because Pete was going to do whatever Paul said. So Watts had a sizable chunk. Nick was kind of a silent partner.
Right.
You know, it wasn't going to work out, and he ended up obviously retiring with Vern up there. But Watts provided the talent, the television show that was customized, dealt with all the talent, whether it be Ernie Ladd as his booker or Bill Dundee, and then later on when he brought Ken Mantell in. I was never a fan of Ken Mantell's booking. Were you?
Yes.
What?
And I loved working with him.
Why? The 6 months we spent there, we thought we were on Gilligan's fucking Island. The shit didn't make any sense, and he wasn't forceful. We had just come from working for Watts, where he told everybody exactly what he wanted, and there's Ken Mantell going, can we just get some kind of a fuck? Right?
You left out though. Yeah, that's why I liked working with him. But I actually enjoyed working with Mantell. But we had him with Watts, you know, later on, and I think it was a lot more forceful at that time. But we had Michael and the Freebirds and
they had to be.
So it was a little bit different atmosphere.
But anyway, a whole new group of talent. JYD was already over, but now you got Ted DiBiase, Duggan, Kamala was a big card at that point in time. Dr. Death got over later on. Of course, in '84, the Rock and Roll, Magnum, Midnight Express. Mm-hmm. That's, like I said before, I love the atmosphere of the Sam Houston Coliseum, and it was, with the exception of the Superdome, and sometimes the Myriad in Oklahoma City the Myriad in Oak City to me was too new and too clean, and didn't have
It was bright.
The atmosphere. It was bright.
It was bright.
But now here's the thing. Here's the thing. They had good security, so we never had a riot in Oak City, and I never got jumped, and I never got beat up. So I always felt safe. But I was going for the houses. The houses were bigger in Oak City than anywhere except the Superdome and Houston, right. And we got great payoffs. Whereas we'd go to Tulsa and it was dark and the atmosphere was more like the Texans, and we had a riot every show, and it had Marks in the Ring, and had internal affairs investigating the police brutality and etc. And I feared for my life and wore a bulletproof vest. However, we looked forward to coming to Houston because, God damn it. We looked forward to coming to Houston because I think the biggest payoff we got that year, besides the Superdome, was in the Sam Houston Coliseum for the last Stampede match, which was one of the two probably most famous modern era matches in Houston, the last being Paul's retirement. 12,000 people in the building, 2,000 or 3,000 turned away.
House, yeah.
They turned in $102,000. I did the math with the amount of people that should have been in there and the ticket prices they charged, and figures 25 or 30 grand probably went in the, what was it, the FIA fund, maybe?
FITA.
Care to elaborate?
Fuck them in the ass account.
The fuck them in the ass account.
Yeah, that was a separate account that the little nephew had.
But anyway, so that was an experience on its own, but then things started changing because the Mid-South in 1986 became the UWF. And now Watts was going to try an all or nothing thing because Vince had spread out with his syndication and was going nationwide, and Crockett was doing it, and Watts tried, and they got a hell of a syndication because wrestling was hot at that point on television. But how did that affect Houston?
Well,
the localized programs went away, the arena programs, and it was more of a. It started robbing, to me, from what I saw on tape and et cetera, started robbing Houston of some of its autonomous identity.
Well, that kind of left that left probably in 85, 86 really, because then it was just Mid-South, and we did do things from the Coliseum, but when Bill started looking at expanding and going nationwide, he just took his eye off the ball. Here's the part that always baffled me. Vince is expanding across the country and doing very well. There were a couple places that he didn't. He didn't do well in Tulsa, didn't do well in New Orleans, he didn't do well in Houston.
Didn't do well in the Carolinas. Didn't do well in
the
Tennessee.
Carolinas, yeah, in Tennessee too. But I'm talking about for where we were.
Yeah.
So in those three markets, Dallas, he was making headway. He actually drew a little bit in Dallas.
Well, with everything that had gone on with the Von Erichs, they pretty much handed it to him on a silver platter. Right. They went in 84 in Texas Stadium, they had 40,000 people, and by 87 they had 6,000.
Yeah, but point being is that Bill protected his little fiefdom there. Yep. And when the big bad Northerners came in, we were able to hold them off, and not only hold them off, kick their ass.
Yeah.
So instead of worrying about your home, I was like, well, by God, he's going to come in my home, I'm going to go into his. So let's go do what he's doing, we'll show him how to do it. And he took his eye off of home base. And home base started suffering.
Why are they fighting up in Des Moines over the whole thing? Just
exactly.
Protect your backyard and build your fort.
And as soon as we started doing that, the writing was on the wall, because it's, hey, how are tickets out in San Clemente? What the fuck is San Clemente? We did double what we did yesterday, so we sold 4 tickets. Yeah. It was that kind of bad advances. It was that kind of houses that these guys were going out to, and now you've got a crew traveling across the country that's used to getting in their cars, making the towns, and they're spending money.
Having fun, doing wrestling the way it ought to be done.
They're having to spend money on hotels and all these rental cars, things that they weren't normally going to do. The houses are 10 times worse than they were back at home, and I'm spending more money on the road, and I'm making 10 times less now. So it all started to take its effect, but going, looking at the effects in Houston, when Bill wanted to go nationally, he was looking for youth, and I'll get into a story about myself, but he was using me to do the interviews for the markets, individual markets around, and I was going to the barn and doing all the baby face and heel interviews. It's real simple, folks. You just change your jacket when you're talking to heel. You put on different jacket, that way you know it's a different time, different place, because baby heels can't be in the same goddamn room, much less in the same country. So while Bill was doing things with me, he was like, okay, well, I'm on their national show. Well, I'm in the Houston office, but I'm going to all the TVs, and I'm also going up and helping out in the office in Bixby a couple days, during the month and things like that. So Bill wants to shoot some angles to make his show bigger. I'm not going to go spend money and do a TV taping in San Clemente, but I've got Houston here. So let's start shooting some things in Houston. When he shoots the angles in Houston, he wants to use me as like the conduit of the TV guy, being in Houston. Paul and the nephew felt that because it was in Houston, it should be Paul. And I mean, it really got that petty and kind of ugly to the...
To me, that was... I understand because Paul was an institution there, but that would have been the wrong kind of heat. At Paul's age at that point, heel's trying to beat him up or be physical. And at the same point, just why put yourself in that position?
But to Bill's point was, okay, I'm going national. This guy's already on my TV. They know him. Yeah. I don't want to have to introduce somebody else. And I'm going backwards because I want a more youthful look.
Yeah.
Trying to explain that to Paul was, and I'm in the middle.
Yeah.
So it looks like, okay, well, Bruce is trying to edge his way in here. It's like, no, just tell me what you want me to do, because I didn't want to heat with either one of them. But of course, it all came back down on me, and it just got to be an extremely awkward position because I'm going up to Oklahoma. I'm working in their office now, and I'm doing their TV. I'm on TV nationwide. They had me edit me out, the things that I did in Oklahoma for the national shows, in Dallas for the national shows.
When it showed in Houston, they'd cut you?
They cut me in Houston, and Paul would do the stuff in Houston.
You weren't even seen in your own hometown.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
So
but I was over and everywhere else.
Well, you know,
San Clemente, I was over.
Awful tough to get over in San Clemente too.
Yeah.
Finally, it's been covered in the Mid-South volume by that folks, that the economy in the core Mid-South cities, the oil bust in Louisiana, spending too much money doing all these things on the road.
And the new gas station.
The new gas station down, and the TV syndication was spread too wide, and they didn't have the infrastructure.
Right.
And the way they expected to pay for it was with the core cities that had always been great in Mid-South, and they became not so great. Mm-hmm. So Watts is looking to sell, and they bungled the whole thing as relates to Houston because nobody communicated with Paul. When Bill Watts sold the UWF to Jimmy Crockett, Paul was, as they say, the last one to know. Nobody contacted, Bill Watts didn't contact him, Crockett. Who do you feel like bungled that? Whose responsibility should it have been to tell Paul Bosch what was going on?
Watts.
And he just didn't.
No.
Why do you think he didn't?
Watts didn't even do the sale. Ross did the sale.
Well, why didn't somebody call the at that point in time was probably one of the main grossing cities in the whole picture.
Right.
And Paul Bosch still owns a majority interest in it.
All right.
Why, man?
I don't know. I was at the TV with Joel Watts, Bill's adopted son, and we were sharing a room, so I'm getting it on all ends, but Joel didn't even know.
Now that sounds, when you're sharing a room with a man and getting it on all ends.
We're getting it on all ends,
you're getting grief from all sides is what you're trying to say.
I thought that's what they discussed here on Kafabi back in the future.
Kafabi territories?
But Joel didn't even know. Joel and I were in the cafe at the hotel when JR and Jim Crockett and the TV guy and the lawyer.
Crockett's TV guy?
Yeah.
Trowbridge or? No.
Trowbridge might have been there, but it doesn't matter. But they come walk right by us. We are the only two people in the restaurant. Completely empty restaurant. We are sitting in a booth.